Hey, what is up you guys? This is Steffi, aka In My Humble Opinion, and welcome back to another episode breakdown and recap of The Handmaid's Tale. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the season 4 finale of The Handmaid's Tale entitled The Wilderness. And before we begin, if you wouldn't mind giving this video a thumbs up, that would be greatly appreciated because it helps YouTube know that this video is worth pushing out to more people like you who watch The Handmaid's Tale, and it just really helps us out here. It helps me, it helps the channel, and it helps our community grow here on YouTube. Especially if you're watching this video right now in the live stream, please take a moment to give this video a thumbs up. Before we get into my review, before we talk about June's Journey, this video is sponsored by June's Journey. June's Journey is a hidden object mystery game that is completely free to download on your phone. I usually play this game towards the end of the day because it is so relaxing and it's the perfect game to unwind with after an episode of The Handmaid's Tale, because you guys know we need a little bit of relaxing after this show. Some levels are a bit more challenging than others, but I personally don't mind it because each scene is just so beautifully colorful and carefully painted. The aesthetics are just... And honestly, my favorite aspect of this game is the story, which you guys know I care a lot about story as someone who reviews movies and TV shows, and I feel like you guys would appreciate it too. I don't want to give too many spoilers, but basically June's Journey is a detective story that takes you back to the glamour of the 1920s as you try to solve the murder of June's sister. Of course, along the way, you uncover some family secrets, which is always really fun. Plus, I love that this game has a diverse set of characters and has a woman at the center of its story, just like The Handmaid's Tale. All things that we love and support on this channel because representation in our media as well as in the games that we play matter. If you're interested in playing this game, I will leave a link in the description box and pinned comment down below. But now let's get into talking about that finale. So the episode opens with the flashback to June and Fred dancing at a Jezebel house, and we get, these awkward moments of Fred getting a little too close to comfort for June.
Clap if you have anxiety.
But June has a really interesting internal monologue here where she literally says it has to look like love. Basically describing her relationship to Commander Waterford, to Fred. It's very grin and bear it as a means of survival, which after watching this episode, we see how all of that comes full circle. But we're not there yet. But by opening the episode in this way, really honing in, zeroing in on the relationship between Fred and June, it kind of let me know as the viewer that pretty much this episode is going to focus in on that relationship. And I had a suspicion, I had a feeling that maybe Fred is not gonna make it by the end of this episode. June then meets with her favorite person on Earth, Tuello, and the plan is for them to get June on tape regarding Fred's imminent release. And the fact that it's just June in this random room, there's no judges present, that's basically a big FU to June because she's kind of on the back burner now, especially since Fred, at least according to Tuello, has been proven to be a valuable asset. June gives us another memorable quote here saying, "Weak men make the world go round." Not just a reference to Fred, but also a little wink wink dig at Tuello. Because even men who are complicit bystanders are weak. June then takes a moment to look up at the blue sky, and she remembers the blue ceiling that she would look up at during the ceremony. Blue was her escape, and we get this lovely poetry slam tribute to the color blue. Blue moon, blue velvet, blue man group. I'd like to personally add in Blue Eminem, Blue Ivy Carter, that catchy song from Eiffel 65 that I liked as a kid that went, "I'm blue, da ba dee da ba da." June then returns home and Luke tries to ground June in the present, reminding her that she's here, Nicole's here, let's count our blessings. Rita can't help but cook and clean because old habits die hard, and Moira is pissed because Fred is going to Geneva and will be free as a bird with his quote, Viking ass wife. Speaking speaking of the Viking-ass wife, we then cut to Fred and Serena. And Fred is being interviewed by government officials while Serena looms over his shoulders. Serena notices that Tuello is coming and she gets up to leave and have a discussion with him outside. Immediately, Serena starts making demands from Tuello and is like, Fred needs a faster Wi-Fi, this one who's interviewing him needs to go because she needs to be addressing him as Commander Waterford. Also, we need a house, so you need to start doing that. And watching this, I was just like, sweetie, you're under custody. You are not in a position to be calling the shots whatsoever. But then again, she's talking to Tuello. And it's at this point Serena and Tuello start making their way closer and closer towards one another. And Tuello asks Serena, you plan on living with the commander as husband and wife? And then Serena is like, yup. And then Tuello goes, can you explain that to me, Serena? I needed a moment. I was dying. I was like, I truly, after he said that, thought Serena was going to drop the bomb that he, in fact, is the father of her child.
You are the father!
It did not happen in this episode, but Bruce, I'm looking at you, Bruce. June then confides in Emily that she really wants to let go of Fred because, you know, trauma. And I really liked that June was having this conversation with Emily in particular because considering too that this episode had a lot of callbacks to the first season, I also thought that this was a nice callback to the fact that Emily and June were walking partners together because as Janine said in that one episode, handmaids always walk in twos. June then goes to meet Fred and the show does these match cuts to earlier seasons when June used to go down and visit Fred back in Gilead. And when June goes to talk with Fred, it's just very clear that Fred does not get it. He clearly doesn't see that what he did was wrong, nor does he see that the way he treated June specifically was wrong. Now that he's going to be a dad, the very thought of his son being taken away is, quote, unimaginable. And that's when Fred finally says, I'm sorry. Cue JoJo's Too Little Too Late, because truly it is too little too late at this point. And I genuinely feel like that apology was just coming out of pure desperation. Sure, he said, I'm sorry, but all of his words prior and just his behavior doesn't warrant that he actually feels bad. At one point during their meeting, June asked Fred for a drink, and I truly thought, oh my goodness, I think June did something to Fred's drink. I think she pulled out that recipe that Mrs. Keys taught her a couple episodes ago, and she's now going to put that plan into motion. But I guess not. Fred then goes on to talk about how he needed their relationship, and Fred even goes on to say that he misses Offred. And plot twist, so does June. And it was in that moment when they clinked glasses and toasted to Offred that Fred pretty much sealed his fate.
Okay, everybody. Cheers!
On the drive home, Luke is trying to be relatable to June, reminiscing about the good times in Boston, and June breaks this happy moment and says, I'm gonna make sure Fred is on that wall, girl. And this is when Luke sealed his fate with the Handmaid's Tale fans when he pretty much dismissed June and said, you gotta let it go. June then meets Tuello outside for a little chat and pretty much tells Tuello that he is helping her and Fred is not getting out. And I thought this moment was a funny mirroring between Serena and June within the same episode, pretty much bossing Tuello around and being like, you're gonna do what I say, bitch. And when Tuello said, we are going to have this discussion because we are human beings trying to work together because we have respect for each other, it was very much giving me like when a white person tells a person of color that they don't see color and that we are one race, the human race. I was like, Tuello, please tell me you're not that girl.
Tell me you're that girl. I don't see color. Are you serious with me right now? Are you that girl? I don't see color.
Tuello and June then meet up with Joseph, and they're going to negotiate a trade-off for Fred. 22 women who worked with the resistance for one Fred Waterford. And Tuello is kind of at a moral crossroads here, trying to decide whether he will accept the deal, but he then says he will take it up to his boss. Which, who's the boss? Is it Serena? But before June leaves, Joseph tells June that whatever happens to Fred won't be enough for her. And I think by the end of the episode, we see that that's pretty much clear. At dinner, June tells Emily that she wants Fred to be afraid. Very afraid. Afraid like in the woods when they took Hannah. Back with the Waterfords, Fred is making plans to Zoom with Serena once he gets to Geneva, which Serena is completely enthralled by.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
But little do they know that this is their last conversation. Or does Serena know? Because as soon as Fred is about to leave, Serena gets this conference call. And you know who else was on the phone when we next see him just moments after? Tuello. Call me crazy, call me a conspiracist, I'll see you on the boards at Reddit. Actually, no, I won't, because that's a very scary place.
This is a case for the FBI.
But Fred is not going to Geneva. He is turned over by Tuello, captured and thrown in a van, and screams, "I'm a man! I have rights!"
Have you ever thought about how hard it is to be a straight white man in a straight white man's world?
Before she leaves, June watches Moira, Luke, and baby Nicole at the window because it's about to go down, as hinted by the fact that she's in a red coat. At the bridge, the 22 women are exchanged for Fred, and Fred tells Tuello that, quote, God knows what he desires and what he covets. Oh? As soon as he crosses the border, Fred is not only greeted by Lawrence, but also by Nick. Dun dun dun!
You guys are in a crisis. I'm on my way.
The eyes take Fred under custody, and if we were to play a drinking game at this point in the episode, and you took a sip for every time Fred called Nick son, you would be out. Fred is once again thrown into a van a la Room Raiders.
Come on, let's go. Come on. No time for shoes.
And he's taken to no man's land. And guess who appears from behind a tree? It's June, bitch. We then get top 5 pettiest things that June has ever done on this show, and she walks over to Nick and they proceed to make out right in front of Fred, much to his confusion and disgust.
Well.
That was really funny.
Next question. See ya.
June whispers in Nick's ear, "Thank you," aka, "This is why you're my favorite." And once Nick leaves, it's go time, ladies. June gives Fred the chance to choose his own adventure, but when he won't do that, June decides for him. She blows her whistle, more women emerge with their flashlights, and it literally becomes the Run meme.
Run.
Fred trips and falls much like June did in that first episode, and he basically becomes a human piñata. The women have formed a circle around him, beating him up, tearing him limb for limb. Emily is there, and June lets out her inner Army Hammer. The next morning, we see Serena is waiting on Zoom, and sweetie, you're gonna be waiting there for quite some time, and I have a feeling it's not because of that Wi-Fi connection. We then see a little package in the form of a wedding ring and finger has been left for Serena, which that'll be fun to see how that unfolds next season. And we finally cut over to Luke, who is confused AF because June is all bloody with baby Nicole. June then tells Luke, just give me 5 minutes with her before I go. And at this point I was like,
that was not my intention.
And I would say it's at this moment when Luke slides down to the floor, he realizes that he's pretty much lost June for the foreseeable future and sees the writing on the wall. Speaking of wall, bye Fred. And we get this last silhouette shot of June and baby Nicole. And that, ladies, is how we end The Handmaid's Tale Season 4.
It's the journey.
Alright, now for some general post-show thoughts. Woo! Oh my goodness, the rage, she's here, and I have a feeling she is here to stay for quite some time. I would say RIP Fred, but I personally believe he doesn't deserve the peace part. Thinking back to the arc of this season, I will say that I feel like the back half of season 4 was really about June's adjustment post-Gilead. Like, how was she going to live her life after suffering the trauma of Gilead for X amount of time? I think if there's one thing we can walk away with in this season is that despite the fact that June, or anyone for that matter who was in Gilead before, despite the fact that they no longer are literally there, a piece of Gilead will always remain with them because that place just really traumatized the heck out of them, and I'm sure that is something that is true for anyone that's experienced any form of trauma. As far as relationships are concerned, I feel like Nick and June are stronger than ever, so if you're a huge Nick and June shipper, you're probably like, woo, let the good times roll. And if you are a Luke and June shipper, I feel like the ship has sunk. I really cannot imagine at this point in the series June and Luke ever coming together, because I think it's very clear that they are two very different people. I saw a lot of people on Twitter talking about this, but I also was a bit like, ugh, over the fact that Luke was more or less dismissing June's feelings. It's hard for anyone to understand what June went through or what any of these ladies went through, especially if you were not there. For Luke repeatedly in this episode to try and tell June to more or less move on, I was like, Luke, you are not earning yourself any brownie points whatsoever. But yeah, interesting to see that in comparison to Nick, who, yes, Nick and June have a very special bond because Nick knows what it was like in Gilead. Nick saw what June had to go through, and he is her partner in crime, and he is totally supportive of however June feels to express her feelings. So yeah, Luke, I don't know. I will say, now that Fred is out of the picture, I have a feeling that next season will be really focused on the Serena comeuppance. Now she's pregnant and alone and sitting on Zoom. Whether or not Tuello is the father of her child, I personally am of the camp that he is the father of her child. I think a lot of people are just waiting on bated breath to see how Serena is going to have her ultimate fall from grace. Like, if she thinks this is her rock bottom, sweetie, we have a long way to go. Even though we didn't see Janine, I am still thinking about Janine and Esther and Lydia back at the Red Center. I was a little surprised that we didn't see them at all in this episode, but I guess that leaves more room for that to be explored next season. Alright, and my question for you guys is, I want to know, were you satisfied with the season 4 finale? I'm not someone who ever really goes on Reddit for The Handmaid's Tale, and I don't really read too many interviews or watch too many interviews with the cast because I genuinely don't like to be spoiled in any way or teased in any way. But I did see on Twitter hours before the episode was about to come out that Yvonne Strahovski, who plays Serena, said that the finale of season 4 was very satisfying. I think she even said this was the most satisfying finale. So I want to know from you guys, do you agree? Did you think that this was the most satisfying finale? I feel like, yeah, to a certain extent, I would agree with that because, man, Fred, bye girl, he is no longer in the picture, and I feel like Fred's had this coming for a very, very, very long time, and just the way it all ended for him was, oof, brutal, but it's what she deserves. So yeah, let me know, were you satisfied with the season 4 finale? Alright, and that's about it for this video and for season 4 of The Handmaid's Tale. Oh my gosh, I can't believe that it's over. I can't believe we have to wait probably a year until the next season. I am wondering if season 5 is going to be their final season. I just want to thank all of you who have been watching these videos for the past couple of weeks, who've been keeping up with my reviews over the past couple of weeks, for sticking with me. Thank you so much for supporting me. I actually have a little surprise. So for those of you who have been watching my coverage of The Handmaid's Tale since season 1, you'll know that I used to do reaction and review videos to The Handmaid's Tale until this season, and the reason why that was because the copyright for The Handmaid's Tale was just very, very difficult. But I actually recorded my reaction to the season 4 finale, and I'm going to be making that available on Patreon. Yeah, so I haven't officially announced my Patreon yet on my channel, but I am going to make that season 4 finale the full reaction, which I've never done for any show before. I'm gonna make that season 4 finale available for you guys to watch on Patreon, and it's gonna be really cheap. It's only $1, so all you have to do is just pay $1 if you really want to watch how I reacted and thought while watching the episode for the first time. Stay tuned for that. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel and that the notification button is turned on so you'll be the first to know when it's available. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I also just want to say too, if Bruce Miller, you're still watching this video, thank you so much for interacting with me on the internet. I think it's kind of a bit surreal that you know what my room looks like and that you even have the time to watch random reviews by me talking about your show. So that's pretty cool. Thank you so much for that, and good job to the cast and crew of The Handmaid's Tale Season 4. And of course, I have to thank Hulu for giving me the opportunity to an advanced screener for Season 4. The Handmaid's Tale was my first show I ever got a screener for, and for that to be my first screener that I ever got is really, really huge for me because I've been covering this show ever since Season 1, so we love growth. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you again to June's Journey for sponsoring this video. As always, everything I said was just my own personal thoughts and all my humble opinion, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!